the laws of war, and what type of mitzvah is this section beginning to talk about? Okay? So here we are, Parashat Shoftim, and we're learning together, and we're up to chapter 20. Okay? So we're beginning to read. Ki tetzeh lemilchama al oivecha, v'reita sus v'rechev, am rav bimcha. The army of the enemies are tremendous in number. Lo tira mehem. No fear. Why? We have a secret weapon. Ki Hashem Elokecha imach. Okay? In the memoirs of the Israeli Air Force pilots of the 6-Day War, some of them, and that was a miraculous war that all of the world has learned that wars in the 6-day victory that God gave us. Some of the quote-unquote secular pilots of the Air Force wrote in their memoirs that they sensed something above the metaphysical in their cockpit during the war, during their raiding and shooting, that they can't explain according to, and they did a lot of training, thousands of hours of flying and this and that. Okay, so Hashem is with you. Which Hashem? Hama'alcha me'eretz Mitzrayim. Right? Everyone in Vegas was betting 100 to 1 that we're not coming out of Mitzrayim. But God took us out. He brought us up from Eretz Mitzrayim. And when you go to war, v'nigash Kohen, there's a Kohen that's going to give you a pep talk. Okay? V'amar lechem in verse 3, Shema Yisrael. Shema Yisrael. No, he's not reading the Shema, but he's calling out to Israel to understand. Atem krivim hayom lemilchama levechem. Al yerach levachem, no fear in your hearts. Al tireu, v'al tachpezu. 3 different verbs for not having fear. And the reason why, verse 4, it's an emphasis. Ki Hashem Elokechem holech imachem nilachem lachem. God is going to fight for you. With you. Im oivechem. And then the shotrim, the police officers, okay, are going to go around and pick the following. Anyone here have a green pass that they don't have to go to the war? And he mentions how many? How many people have a green pass not to go to this war?
A lot.
Number 1, no. Everything here is itemized. A person, for instance, who
built a new house.
Bana Bayit Chadash, and what did he not do? Look at the Hebrew word. Velo chanacho. Beautiful. I'm happy, Zechariah. Great, you're using all these Hebrew terms. Kol hakavod to you. Velo chanacho. Lachnoch. God willing, you're going to build a family. You're going to buy an apartment. You're going to make a ceremony called Chanukat Abayit. King David wrote a psalm called Mizmor Shir Chanukat Abayit. We recite in the Psukei de Zimra in the morning. Lachnoch something is to do it for the first time. To inaugurate. Is that the word in English perhaps? Okay? Lachnoch. So if you built a house, Bayit Chadash, but you have not done Yadei, you haven't lived in there, you haven't put up mezuzot yet. What do? You can go back, you don't have to go to war. Yelach v'yashov leveito. Why? Pen yamut b'melchama, because God forbid you might die. And someone else is gonna take over the house. Green pass number 2, verse 6. Umi aish asher natak kerem. Someone that planted a
orchard, vineyard.
A vineyard. Velo chilelo. Lechalel. Look at me. Think of the verb. Lechalel comes from which shoresh? From which root?
Ochel.
No, not ochel. What? No. Lechalel. What word do you hear? What?
Halal.
Chililo. Not with a hey, with a chet. What, sir? Hamavdil ben kodesh. What is chol?
Separated.
Regular.
Mundane, not holy. Velo chililo. Remember, the trees of the land of Israel, saplings that are planted, as the Torah tells us in Vayikra 23, if I'm not mistaken, 3 years shall be arelim, or la, meaning
You cannot.
it's closed up. Someone who's uncircumcised called an arel. It's closed up. the organ is closed up, it's not cut, right? What the fruits of the saplings for 3 years are orla, a prohibition of eating. What happens in year number 4? Almost. We have a mitzvah of a 4th year planting to bring the fruits up to Yerushalayim, meaning the in-walled city of Yerushalayim, and we eat the fruit there. Can he invite you over? Yes. Can I be invited over to? Sure. He takes his fruits, all his fruits of the 4th year sapling, and to eat it there. What happens if his Mercedes-Benz truck is in the garage? It's not working.
You can sell it and
Don't use the word sell, please. Very good. Pidyon. He makes a pidyon. He redeems. He transfers the holiness from
Fruits to money.
excellent. From the fruits to money. If you planted a kerem, a vineyard, velo chilelo, meaning
You haven't harvested.
you haven't arrived to the stage of
Fresh
the
fruit.
4th year. That's right. You haven't transferred the holiness. What should you do? You have a green pass not to go to war. Why? Because if you die, somebody else will do it.
take over.
That's green pass number 2. Is there a third one?
Can
Mia ish, verse number Zion, verse 7. Umia ish, who is the man? Asher eras isha. Eras written with which letter?
Aleph Rish.
Sin. Today in modern day Hebrew, we use the letter Samech. And engagement is commonly called Erusin. Very good, Michal Aryeh. Erusin. Erusin. So, by the way, if a legal halachic Erusin was made, I know you're invited to your friend's engagement party, but we're careful to tell people engaging, do not do the formal engagement that you are now engaged. You're engaged to me with this ring or something. Why?
Why?
Because if, God forbid, they decide not to go to the wedding, he has to give her a get,
Oh, really?
a divorce. Because Erusin is really almost acquiring her. It's stage 1 of marriage. And it's completed by the Nisu'in. Under the chuppah, that completes the marriage. So, green pass number 3. Misha eras isha velo lekacha. Lekacha. Lakachat. Acquire. Halachic acquisition. Lakachat does not just mean to take, but here it means to acquire. To make what we call a kinyan, an acquisition. Okay? Some of you, no, I don't think so, are learning Rabbi Weinberg's Gemara Shir. Masechet Kiddushin, chapter 1, Mishnah 1, the Mishnah says, Ha'isha niknet b'shalosh drachim. A woman is acquired in one of 3 ways. B'kesef, b'shtar, u'b'biyah. She can be acquired through money, through a note that I'm acquiring her, or through marital relations. So that's what lekachat means here. So if you engage someone, but you have not yet consummated the engagement to marriage, lo lekachala, you can go back also, you don't have to go to war. Why? Because if you die, God forbid, someone else will marry her. Gentlemen, do you get a sense of what type of mitzvah we're talking about?
Yes.
I didn't ask you. You think I'm a very unfair person, right? But I have an agreement with him. He just talks a lot sometimes, I'm sure. What type of mitzvah do you think we're talking about, Davin? Are we talking about a Milchemet mitzvah, a war of a commandment war, mitzvah war, or a war which is reshut, not mandatory? What do you get a sense of? Very good. Very good. Not mandatory. The Talmud says, regarding a Milchemet mitzvah, we're being attacked, God forbid, by Syria, by Hezbollah, by this entity or that entity. We don't have any place to go. They want us in the Mediterranean. So any war today here, obviously, against us living in the land is Milchemet mitzvah. So the Talmud says, quote, Afilu chatan mitachat chupato. Do you understand the words I just said in Hebrew? Afilu chatan. Tachat chupato.
Oh, so even the
Even the chatan under his chuppah is taken to the war. The war. Meaning, in Milchemet Mitzvah, any free passes not to go?
No green cards.
No green cards. No green cards. Everyone has to go. So we could explain that the beginning of this chapter, chapter Kaf, chapter 20, until where is talking about a Milchemet Reshut. All find, you think, the end of the section, and you're included, Michal Aryeh. Where do you think or see is the end of this particular section? Where does it end? At the end of which verse? Hananel, where does this section end? At the end of which pasuk?
9.
Excellent. Very good. Hananel is right. From pasuk Aleph to pasuk Tet to the end of 9 is a section. Look in my Chumash, which is printed in the way the Torah is scribed. I have a gap here of about 9 letters. A gap. Okay? You have a gap as well. And the line is not skipped. You have it in your Tanakh as well. Very good. Do you have it in your Tanakh? So we can identify that as a parshia, as a subsection. Okay? And now we have a new section inside the same chapter. And the Torah is giving us this gap to think, to digest, to understand. Major stop, so to speak. And now we go to the next section, Pasuk Yud. Shall we continue?
Yes.
So Yosef says, he insists we have to continue. Ki tikrav el ir, when you shall come close to a city. And of course our question is, which city? Lilachem ala, and you're fighting on her. V'karata ila l'shalom. Peace, brothers, instead of war. Here's a mitzvah to call out to war. A major question we can already raise right now is
Obligatory or not obligatory?
This can't be the cities of the Canaanites because we can't make peace with them.
so raise your question. What
War.
war is this talking about?
No,
Solid.
obligatory.
You accept this as a question, or you say it's not a question?
It's actually not a question.
Why, sir?
It appears that it is non-obligatory.
Okay. So you're going to say that it's a non-obligatory war, and I think it's a legitimate question. What kind of war are we talking about that you have to call out in peace? Okay, let's keep on reading. Ve'aya, and if it will be, im shalom ta'ancha, if they answer you, peace, ufatchalach, v'aya cholam nimtza ba yulach halamas. Everyone that's going to be in that town, they're going to be subjected to mas, taxation, vavaducha, and they will have to serve you. Im lo tashlim imach, the next verse 12, if they don't want to make peace with you, okay, vasta mimcha milchama, they're going to make with you a war. What do you have to do? Vitzarta aleha, then you shall make a what? You shall besiege it. Now let's learn about this besieging. Pasuk Yud Gimel, verse 13. Unitana Hashem Elokecha b'yedecha. As if the Torah is saying parenthetically, don't worry, God's going to deliver them in your hands. Vikita, it calls zichura lefichar, all the males have to be wiped out. Hunat, Pasuk Yudalid, rak, but hanashim, the women, vataf, the children, vabeima, the animals, v'chol asher yaveir, whatever's left in the city, kol shlala lavos. All its booty, you can take as spoil for yourself. V'achaltat shlalo ivecha, you can eat the spoil of your enemies. Asher natan Hashem Elokecha lach. Kain said, this is what you should do. L'chol ha'arim harechokot mimcha me'od. Do this to the cities that are far away from you. What does that mean? Asher lo me'area goyim ha'elahena. Uh-oh, here we go. Here is the noun and the adjective. Do this to the nations that are not of the cities of these nations. Who are Hagoyim Ha'ela in this context, do you think, gentlemen?
Mitzrayim.
That's right.
You mean the cities we have to destroy?
I'm asking, in the context of 15, who are Lo me'arei agoyim me'el, who are not of the cities of these nations. When the Chumash in this context is using these nations, to whom is it talking?
Oh, Moab and Ammon.
Why are you going far away? What do you say?
Canaan.
You say Canaanites. Remember, the book of Dvarim is 36 days of the end of the life of Moshe Rabbeinu. He's getting this generation ready to cross the waters called the Yarden, the Jordan, go into the land of Israel, and conquer the land of Canaan, populated by 7 Canaanite nations. So if you're going to war against people that are further away, only kill who?
Men.
The men, and not
Isha.
the women and kids. As opposed to verse 16, Rak, but me'arei ha'amim ha'ela, the cities of these peoples, okay, asher Hashem Elokecha noten lecha, which God is giving you for inheritance. A prohibition, the last 4 words, lo, the end of 16, lo techayeh kol neshama. Lo techayeh kol neshama. Don't allow to live who?
Souls.
Any soul alive, which includes
Children,
children,
Old
number
people.
1, old people, who else? Women,
women, and,
What about the cattle?
the cattle.
and animals.
You're asking, are we allowed or not allowed to take spoil? I think we're allowed. Pasuk 17, what should you do? Ki acharim tacharimim achiti ve'emori v'kanani v'aprizi achivi v'zeh.
Okay,
Wow.
Okay, sure.
Your question, sir.
But what was it with Achan? He was not allowed to take the clothing, right? In the war of
The question of Michal Aryeh, Demokase, is regarding in the event in Sefer Yoshua, after the first war, supposedly fought by the Jewish people, but God huffed and puffed and blew down the walls of Jericho, and then we put ablaze the city. Yoshua demanded that no one take of the spoil of the cities of Jericho, of Jericho. He made the prohibition, not Hashem. He was thinking that this is going to be the Reshit. Remember that word we saw not long ago, 20 minutes ago? The Reshit, the first, the primary of our war in the land of Canaan. And what is first belongs to Hashem. Often Hashem says, you, the Kohanim, are representing the first. I want this to be to the Kohanim and this to the Leviim. So that was a quote-unquote a rabbinical, prophetical prohibition that didn't start from Hashem.
But in all the cities, they took all the spoils.
Yes, sir.
To
I want to go back 10 minutes ago where this gentleman said unequivocally to Zechariah, you don't have no question. This chapter is talking about Milchemet Reshut. Is that what you said, sir?
Yes.
You have you have the right to decline, and you can refuse, and say you didn't say that. But I have witnesses. You want to still hold by that?
Yes.
Okay, stop it. Let him say that. Continue. We're gonna learn that you agree with Rashi, but I want to bring up Ramban Nachmanides. But before that, we want to hear your question or comment.
Yeah, I just noticed that it's only 6 here, but Rabbi said 7. We know that the Jewish size is missing.
I knew you're a good accountant. He counts 6 nations mentioned here, even though we know the term Shiv'a Amei Chenaan, 7 Canaanite nations. One was left out, called
Girgashi.
Right. And what did they do? According to our Talmud, oral Torah,
They
They
pretended.
No, they scrambled. They fled. I don't know through the front door, back door, but they fled. They were not there when we crossed the Jordan. My dear friends, we have the issue here of the laws of war and an army. And we began learning that there's a mitzvah to call out shalom. And our question we're asking is, which type of milchama are we discussing in this chapter? Is it milchemet
Mitzvah.
a commandment of war, or is it milchemet reshut? If it's milchemet reshut, meaning a non-mandatory war, we're going to Saudi Arabia. There are a lot of oil fields, and we want to take over. Do you know what it's going to do for the economy of Israel? Let's just say Israel in 25 years decides that we're going to take over. And maybe by then we're going to have a peace agreement with the Saudis. Please take whatever you want. Halan salah, take whatever you want. Right? And, they know that we're a benevolent nation and we give out to the poor and we'll start feeding African nations or third, what do they call third what? Third what? World, we'll start feeding third world nations. So, what type of war is that? Going out to Saudi Arabia and conquering them? Reshut. They're not parts of the lands God promised to give to the Jewish people, Avram, Yitzchak, Yaakov. So that would be called an example of a milchemet reshut, right? Gentlemen, do we have to call out in peace to milchemet mitzvah, or only do we call out shalom in milchemet reshut? This is the subject of a machloket, a difference of opinion between Rashi and Ramban. When I open up the Rashi that some of you have in front of you, you have it yourself. You can show Idan that you have it in. You may not believe that I'm reading. It says in verse 10, Ki tikra ve'lir, the beginning of this section, Rashi says, this is talking about a non-obligatory war. How does Rashi prove what he's saying? For those that don't have Rashi, follow me. Because that's what's explicit in this context. And he brings verse 15. Kain ta'aseh l'chol ha'arim ha'rechokot. This is what you shall do to all the distant cities. In other words, Rashi says in verse 10, the opening to call out in peace is applicable as well to what's talking about verse 15. This is what you're going to do to the distant cities from you. The distance meaning not apparently in the land of Canaan, but further away. Those that are further away, we're not obligated to conquer those lands. And you have to call out in peace. So according to Rashi, get ready for the following question, an analytical question I'm about to ask you. According to Rashi, here in verse 10, calling out in peace is only referring to milchemet reshut. What would Rashi say regarding milchemet mitzvah? Do you have to call out in peace or not?
No.
No, you have to kill them.
No calling out in peace, according to Rashi. Case taken? That's Rashi and his proof. Ovadia?
In Bereshit, when God promises land to Abraham, there's a much bigger border than what we actually conquered.
Right, but it's also mentioned in Sinai, all the way up to the Nahar, the Euphrates, Parashat Mishpatim at Sinai.
The same borders that are given to Abraham are given to us at Sinai.
That's right, sir. That's
Okay.
right.
Never mind that.
Now, I want to bring your attention to Ramban, Rabbeinu Moshe ben Nachman. He was a Breslever?
No.
Oh, okay, just wanted to know. Ramban says that he disagrees. The calling out in Shalom is also or including Milchemet Mitzvah. Even to the 7 Canaanite nations, number one, we first have to do Shalom, offer them peace. And now I'll bring to you 2 proofs, at least, Ramban brings to counter the opinion of Rashi. Number 1, Moshe Rabbeinu, here in his 39th and 40th year in the book of Bamidbar, do you remember the names of those entities, the nations that Moshe led Israel to war with, where we took so much territory on the east side of the Jordan River? What were the names of those 2 nations? Sichon, the king of
Sichon.
Emory.
Amorite is a
Canaanite.
Canaanite entity. And also Og, Melech Bashan. They too are Canaanite entities. And we saw that Moshe called out in peace. Moshe called out in peace. There are 2 places for the war. One appeared in Bamidbar, and then in the review in Dvarim. And there we see that Moshe called out in peace. Okay? That's one proof. since he went to war against Amorite entities, Canaanite entities, and he called that in peace. That's a milchemet mitzvah. The war of the mitzvah is to eradicate, abolish anything but monotheism. Now, the other side of the Jordan River is part of greater land of Israel. The west side is primary Eretz Yisrael, has more holiness than the eastern side of the land of Israel, but the eastern side as well has holiness of the land of Israel. They're not equal in holiness. Okay, that's proof number one. Proof number two comes from the oral Torah. There's a famous Yerushalmi, Jerusalemite Talmud, regarding Yoshua ben Nun. Okay, and I add some savory taste to it, and I say that Yoshua ben Nun, he inundated, he brought about the Israeli postal system. Ask me, how do I know?
How do you know?
It's none of your business. No, it is your business. The answer is, the Talmud, Yerushalmi says, he sent 3 letters to the Canaanites before he and the nation crossed the Jordan River. He sent to them, I don't know if it was registered mail, but he sent the first letter, gentlemen, we're coming in to the land of Israel. No idolatry here whatsoever. No Sunday morning mass. None of this, none of that whatsoever. There was no response. He sent in a second letter. Gentlemen, the nations of Canaan, we're coming in. The door's open. We won't touch you. You can take the ferry. You can take a Concord flight. You can whatever you want. You can just leave the land. The land does not tolerate anything but the belief of one God. There was no reply to the second letter as well. So Yeshua sends in the third letter to the nations of Canaan. Gentlemen, put up your dukes. We're coming in to fight a war, to conquer the land. Do you see? According to this Talmud, he offered peace. He said, you can stay here. There's no problem. We're not going to go to war with you. Just take away your idolatry. The second time too, peace. You can leave. No war, no fighting, no bloodshed. So that's how the Ramban proves from a second point that anyone that wants to make peace with the Jewish people from the Canaanites can. We see in a third way, do you remember the story of the Givonim? The Givonim. Do you remember the story of the Givonim in the book of Sefer Yoshua? They tricked the Jewish people into believing they're a nation coming from afar. And they tricked us. We made a covenant, a brit with them, that they can live in our land, and we will respect them and honor them and even protect them. And then later, after this farce, we found out they tricked us, that they really are Canaanites. And then we see, Chevra, had you told us, had you wanted to live in peace, we'd have let you live in peace. There would be no problem. So in other words, Ramban proves from that episode that Givonites, which are one of the Canaanite entities, they could have been living here. Gentlemen, the Ramban adds regarding there's 2 levels of calling out to peace. Those Canaanites that are living far away, we can call out for peace, but they must be paying taxation and being servants, as we just saw in the text. However, the ones living in the cities in Eretz Yisrael proper, in the western side, not far away, then it's not enough peace to pay taxation and to be servants. If they're the ones that are living local Canaanites, the Ramban says they must accept upon themselves 7 Noachite mitzvot. 7 Noachite mitzvot. And no, of course, Avodah Zarah. Okay? The Ramban further brings that if these nations do tshuva, meaning they accept the 7 mitzvot of Bnei Noach, not that they have to do giur. No such thing. They don't have to do giur. They don't have to. We're not interested in proselytizing the nations. So here we have a difference of opinion. In summary, in the opening, in this section of verse 10, like you said, Hananel, the first section was talking about Milchemet Reshut from the beginning of the chapter, the end of verse 9. And now, when we're reading from 10 until 18, there's a difference of opinion. Is it Milchemet Reshut that you have to call out in peace? That's what Rashi says. And Ramban, and by the way, Rambam as well. As well, like the Ramban, that we have to call out in peace even in Milchemet Mitzvah. Any questions until now, gentlemen?
I was a little bit confused about the Rabbi told about the other nation, Givoni.
The Givonim
Which
are one of the 7 Canaanite nations that portrayed themselves by taking old clothing and stale bread, and that they're very weary, as if they're coming somewhere from Asia, I don't know, somewhere from far, far away. They tricked us into believing, and they wanted to live with us, and we were tricked. Our elders, our scholars, accepted their offer, and we swore to them, and we had to keep our swearing. By the way, this coming Sunday, it'll be a few days until the Ulpan starts. Yours truly, what's his name, Menachem Listman, in his afternoon Tanakh Shiurim, we're going to be studying this matter as well in Sefer Shmuel Bet, the cost that the Jewish people will pay for eliminating, for killing hundreds of years after this covenant, this pact is made. They're going to pay a very heavy price. For more about this, in Yom Rishon's afternoon show. You're not going to get out of me now. I'm telling you. I refrain to talk more about it. Yes. Other questions?
And
Because I'm not a tough kid. What?
I'm just wondering, is the Rabbi says there's one Canaanite nation that skipped.
That's the Prizi. The
Prizi.
Prizi. The Girgashi. Right?
Girgashi.
The
So
Girgashi.
aren't they the Girgashi, the Givoni?
Not to my knowledge. If you can show me a source about that, I'd be happy to hear about it. I'm not aware. Okay? Let's now go on, which will be our last matter of today, to something that's really what I wanted to discuss with you together. Verse 19. Shall we? Indulge? B'vakasha. Some of you thought it was like 1 hour short from 3 to 4, and now I'm going overtime, but no one hit the buzzer, so we're still going. Okay?
Question.
Yes.
What is this tahina doing up there?
I would throw it out. It's someone, unless it belongs to someone that you know here.
I mean, I don't know. I just noticed
I'll
it.
take some.
He'll take it. There you go.
But like, I would check the date.
I don't think it's sitting there 5 years. It's someone that came.
Someone probably put it there. I
And
don't
from
know
the
when.
Shabbat people when they come.
Could be. Maybe. You made Shabbos together with some students, didn't you? Here?
Yeah,
Kol
no, but
hakavod.
in the Rabbi Rothman's room.
Why? Why they're not here?
Maybe from the women's.
Oh, these are small.
Because they have the shear in here, so we don't.
The women's share in the afternoon.
Yeah, we didn't want to interfere because we were having
Okay.
all 3 meals here.
Oh, good for you. So kol hakavod on your initiative.
Oh, wow. It's only
It's,
been 3 months.
Okay.
earlier on.
Let's go. Gentlemen, Pasuk 19. Yutet. Ki tatzor el ir yamim rabim. We're now going to see that after the Torah is giving us guidance, how to behave going forth to battle, okay, or relations with others in arms, okay, we talked about the enemy. Now we're going to see an interesting passage related to the plant world. Okay? Let's see your military tactics. Ki tatzor el ir yamim rabim. When you're going to be besieging a city for a long time, lilachem aleha litofsa. I have an interesting translation from Nechama Leibovich's book in studies in front of me. In making a war against it, to take it. You wanna grab that city. What does the Torah say you're not allowed to do? Lo tashchit et eitzah. You're not allowed to destroy the trees of that city. Lindoach alav garzen, by wielding an axe against them. Why? Ki mimenu, from the tree. Tochel, you're going to eat. Ve'oto, and that tree, pronoun ve'oto, lo tichrot, you're not allowed to cut them down. Why? I'm adding ki. And we're going to try to we're asking a question right now. Does the word ki only mean because? Or does the word ki have several meanings? We often learn in our learnings in Chumash, in the text in Tanakh, that ki tolerates several different meanings and not only because. Ki ha'adam eitz hasadeh. The tree is tov. I'm already going to hint to Rashi's understanding that he explains the word ki as asking of a rhetorical question. Ki. For is the tree of the field man? Ki Adam Eitz Hasadeh. Again, I'm reading it according to how Rashi understood it as a question. Okay, is the tree of the field man? Lavomi panecha b'matzor, that it should be besieged of you? What are you going to besiege a tree? Don't you know a tree can't run away? But if you besiege some other people, they can run out the back door. Okay? Rak eitz asher teda. Only the trees of which you know. Kilo eitz ma'achalhu. Again, here is a criteria of a tree. Eitz ma'achal. A tree that gives fruit. Right? Only those. Kilo eitz ma'achalu. Oto tashchit. Okay? Only those fruitless trees are you allowed to cut down. V'charata. Destroy. Lashchit is to destroy. V'charata, and cut down. Does anyone remember the usage of the Tanakhic verb lichrot otherwise than just cutting? What?
Oh.
What comes into
it? Cutting out, getting cut off from Hashem.
Very good, correct, excellent. I wasn't thinking about that. Other example, please. It's used in Bereshit to establish an agreement with God, which is called, which word am I referring to? Upright, very good. The verb lichrot is used, meaning here it's used to cut. Things are, I think there's an expression in English, maybe other languages, you please tell me. Things are cut clear. Is that an expression, an idiom? Yeah? Things are cut clear. It's very clear. Cut clear. Just like you're cutting a tree. Everything is clear. Fine. Understood. So we see the Torah uses the word v'charata. Okay? Only a fruitless tree can you destroy and cut down. Uvanita matzor. So you can build a siege. Allah on the city. Asher yosa'im chad, it's doing with you milchama. Ad ridita, until the city falls. So here, very interesting. If you were a member of the Society for Tree Protection, you've been paying your dues year after year after year, you'd be very happy reading this pasuk, wouldn't you? What is the Torah giving us protection for fruits? For fruit trees? Interesting. In the midst of the war, the Torah cares for all these things. Why? What's going on here? Yes?
If you go like to Saudi, too far, not to...
If you go what?
Like far away from Jordan.
Yes.
To like, can you cut the trees over there, or it's just for the trees in Eretz Israel you can't cut it?
Excellent question. Excellent question.
Yeah.
Worthy of investigation. It's clear. I don't see a hint here. Maybe it's even referring to the land of Israel as well.
Oh.
Could be. We don't see limitation.
I would think, like, at minimum, it's referring to the land of Israel, just from the perspective of that once Bnei Israel stopped getting the man, it transferred that spiritual property transferred into the food of Eretz Israel.
Right. The Bach. The Beit Chadash, one of the great poskim, in his commentary of the tour of the Shulchan Aruch, Rav Yaakov Balaturim, he writes, I forgot chapter 200 and what, and it's later it's brought to the Shulchan Aruch, that when we make the after bracha over the 7 fruits of the land of Israel, you're all aware which after bracha I'm talking about?
Me'en Shalosh.
Me'en Shalosh, right? It's called the abbreviated, the 3-faceted blessing, the Me'en Shalosh. So he explains the famous midrash about Moshe Rabbeinu, that he wanted to cross the Jordan to even eat the fruits of the land of Israel. And some of the posers, what? Moshe Rabbeinu wants to come to Israel to eat fruits? Moshe Rabbeinu is a very spiritual person. So the Bach says yes. And he brings a source, I forgot from where, that the fruits of the land of Israel, the holiness is in eating the actual fruits physically. And you become more spiritually uplifted by eating the actual fruits. That's what Moshe Rabbeinu wanted to do. And that's what it says inside the body of the bracha, that we shall eat it b'kedusha v'torah, with holiness and with purity. Okay, there's holiness and purity in the fruits of the land of Israel. Okay, I'm sorry, it's not the same thing in the Netherlands. It's not the same thing. Eating the fruits of the land of Israel in Israel is very, very special. My dear friends, the word ki, according to Rashi, this clause, which is difficult to understand, as explaining why you can't cut down the tree, because man, if we explain it the word because, ki, okay, what are we saying? Ki adam eitz hasadeh, that man is the tree of the field. So what? So for that you can't cut down the tree? What's going on? So Rashi maybe is hinting to us that he had a difficulty here. And therefore he explains the word ki, okay, as an interrogative meaning. Really? Is the tree of the field a man who is besieged by you? Do you think the tree is being besieged by you? He's going to suffer famine and thirst just like the inhabitants of the city? So why then should you cut it down? That's how Rashi is explaining it. Why? In other words, according to Rashi, it's a rhetorical question that's motivating the prohibition here. Okay? Why should you cut it down? You should know that the Ibn Ezra, the counterpart of Rashi in Spain as well, okay, not as well, Rashi was in France, Ibn Ezra differs, and he refuses to see here that this is a question, and he explains, and I'm quoting here, in my opinion, I have it in front of me here by Menachem Leibovich's book, we have no need of all this, but this is the meaning. You may eat them, and you shall not cut it down, for the tree is man's life. There are psukim in the Tanakh that discuss about the value, the nutritional value that man gets from the fruits of the trees. And Rav Shimshon Raphael Hirsch, okay, the great later scholar, 150 years ago in Germany, Rav Shimshon Raphael Hirsch, that we have several copies of there in the corner. He also adopts the opinion of Ibn Ezra, who was 700 years before him. And he says, Chayav shel Adam eino ela min ha'ilan. The life of man is only from the tree. Maybe Ibn Ezra was a vegetarian, then I'm not so sure. But here we see two explanations that reflect, two different grammatical approaches to the text. And of course, a different grammatical approach to the text leads us to differences in understanding the meanings, what implications. Because according to the first explanation, according to how Rashi, as if the Torah is asking a question, this ordinance is inspired by the compassion. I'm reading what she's writing, Rav Geveret Nechama Levi, what a great scholar. This ordinance is inspired by the compassion for whatever God has created. Okay? But according to the second explanation, the ordinance is motivated by human welfare, what's good for man, that you shouldn't cut off the tree. And you should know the distinction here between Rashi versus Ibn Ezra is reflected by a lot of other authorities who concern themselves explaining why are you not allowed to do what's doing here. The word tashchit, to destroy. There are poskim, when you study the Gemara called Baba Kama, the first gate, which deals with the four primary damagers. Hashor, Vabor, Hamaveh, Vavir. The ox, the pit that you opened up that causes people damage. Hashor, Vabor, Hamaveh. The animal that eats of the fields of someone illegally. And Hever, fire. There's a great investigative question that's asked. Is there a source in the Torah that we're not allowed to damage? Or is that the Torah talks about that when you damage, you must make the payments? And some want to argue and say that here in this pasuk, when it says lo tashchit, why does it say not destroy? Just right. Are you allowed to cut it down, or you're not allowed to cut it down? Why does the Torah have to use the verb lo tashchit, do not destroy? So there are some authorities that hold lo tashchit means from here I can learn to all the Torah that we have to be careful not to cause damage. And if we cause damage, we have to do tshuva. Often it means paying money. Certainly means saying sorry if I cause damage to someone. Okay? So some say lo tashchit, and therefore some of you have heard bal tashchit, right? Don't throw away this food. Why? Bal tashchit, don't destroy food. give it to the poor, or wrap it up, or again, that's why people take often leftovers of bread or something, put it in a bag, and then throw it away, or give it to the birds, so we don't destroy it directly, but roundabout. Okay, so there are those that hold that this is a source for the prohibition of causing damage. The word for damage in Hebrew,
Nezikim.
in plural, nizakim, and in
Nezik.
nezek. Very good. Ovadia, a question?
I heard it explained. I forgot exactly the source, but I heard it explained a little bit. The reason why we don't cut down fruit trees is because by cutting them down, one, you're showing a lack of faith in God that you're going to win, because you need the fruit trees as opposed to just the other trees that are around. And two, by cutting down the fruit trees, if you did conquer the city afterwards, you're only harming yourself by cutting down the fruit trees.
Very nice. I saw that. I saw that brought, and I don't remember where. If I want to look up one of the great authorities that explains the reasons behind the mitzvot, who would I look up? Some of you all know. The truth is, the big argument amongst our scholars. Some say, well, we don't know the reasons behind them because God didn't tell us. And there are other authorities that say, well, if you would tax your intellect and try to investigate and understand, what do you think God wants from us? Why is it? Then this might be the answer. We never know for real, forever. Who is one of the greatest authorities in the Rishonim, in the medieval commentators that initiated this type of study and work? Do you remember who it is? Someone that wrote an entire volume where he enumerates all the 613 mitzvot. The Rambam, you're right, the Rambam does that in the Moreh Nevuchim. In the Guide to the Perplexed, one of the books he writes, he enumerates the mitzvot, and firstly I say for a mitzvot, I'm sorry. In the Mishnah Torah, the first book you could say is the book of mitzvot. He enumerates, he itemizes the 613. But you're right, in the Moreh Nevuchim, in the Guide to the Perplexed, he does that. That's very good, David. Who else?
Chinuch.
The Sefer HaChinuch. Right? Can you point to, where is it here? Okay. Sefer HaChinuch, he made himself anonymous. We don't know exactly who it is. He didn't want to take credit. But it's a very interesting, his authoring is very, very special. He itemizes according to the portions of the week. The mitzvot aseh, the positive. The mitzvot lo ta'aseh, the negative mitzvot. And then he says, this is the mitzvah, the source. And to who is it applicable to? What period of time is it applicable to? And then he gives ta'amei ha-mitzvot. Have you heard of the word ta'amei? You've heard of that word? Ha'ochel ta'im?
Taim meod meod.
Ta'im. Yeah, the food is flavor or tasty. I think the word tasty. Tasty, thank you. And so he gives the taste of the mitzvah, meaning Chazal used the word ta'am ha-mitzvah, the reasoning behind the mitzvah. So I want to share with you what the Sefer HaChinuch writes about this here. I have it here. And again, this is not me. This is all wonderful. I very much suggest, add on time, Yom Shishi, Shabbat, use this great woman scholar's book called The Studies in Bereshit Shvot Vayikra. We have this few sets. She's a great scholar. My dear father-in-law, she live and be well, learned from her. She can put a lot of scholars in her right pocket and her left pocket in blessed memory. And very educational. She writes the following. The Sefer HaChinuch. This mitzvah of not cutting down fruit trees, even when you want to siege and go to war against your enemy, is designed to inculcate the love of the good and beneficial. That's something along the lines that Ovad just said a few minutes ago. This will, that we don't cut down these fruit trees, led to the avoidance of destructiveness and the promotion of our well-being. If we get used to destroying things, we're going to take things lightly. We won't treat things with honor, respect, even things that don't have great value in their monetary value. The Talmud says, din pruta kedin meya. As far as the court cases, whether it's the litigation is a few shekels or litigation is 1,000,000 shekels, doesn't make a difference. Value is value, whether it's little or more. Do you remember the story of Yaakov Avinu getting to the brook of the Yabok, and he's about to meet up with Esav, and he takes his wives and his children, and then who does he meet up in the middle of the night with? The angel of Esav. And the Talmud asks, why did he go back to the other side? Didn't he bring everything across? Do you remember the answer? Rashi brings that famous midrash. Do you remember why he went back to the other side? After bringing his wives and children to the other bank, the other side? He went back to bring pachim ktanim, little cans. Meaning things that don't have much value. From there we learned that not that Yaakov is a cheapskate. From there we learned that Yaakov gave value to everything and anything that had value. Whether it's great value, numerically, or whether it's even small value. So he writes in Sefer Chinuch, by not destroying things, we're promoting not to be destructive. We're avoiding destructiveness and promoting well-being. This is the way of the pious, the tzaddikim. And the worthy who love peace and rejoice in the well-being of all men. I see the good. I see the value that you have. That's what God meant to give you. He gave you. Okay? And when I do that, I'm being brought closer to all the mitzvot. They do not suffer the loss of even a grain of mustard. It's a Talmudic expression. They even give heed to that. Okay? I'm not talking about there's a piece of mustard here and it's messed up from someone's mouth or some cheese on it. You don't have to save everything and everything. Things are not edible. Things are not usable. And don't be overdoing it. Okay? Being distressed at the sight of any loss or destruction. Okay? When we see loss or destruction, it hurts us. Chaval. Okay? I heard I was listening to the news or I saw something on YouTube. There was a terrible fire in Hawaii or something a few days ago. Mm-hmm. And many people died, and I don't know. I said, Chaval, pity. I was sad to hear about the loss of people, of mankind. How many died in that terrible? Was it arson, by the way? Was it heat?
Yeah.
It was heat? Was it volcanic?
No, it was like heat.
Terrible.
Then fire, forest fires.
Oh, yeah.
It's usually comes with lightning.
Well, I'm sorry. We should be sorry at any loss. If they can help the pious, they prevent any destruction with all the means at their disposal. I see a banana peel on the floor. I see a pit on the road. Do you know? The Talmud asks the following rhetorical question. Who wants to become a chassid? There's several answers. There in Masechet Baba Kama, where the laws of torts and damages are taught, the Talmud gives a few answers. One answer is deal with the matter and the laws of brachot. Then you become so pious, so saintly. You know how to bless God in each time, in every subject, in every matter. And another answer, the Talmud says, quote, Haiman lehavi chasida, libai chasida, yasok b'inyanei denezikim. If you occupy yourself with the matters of torts and damages, you learn the laws of damages, which is the tractate called Baba Kama, then you become a chassid. And the Gemara says, what do you mean? And the Gemara responds and says, you prevent damages. Okay? Sometimes I'm not careful enough and I don't prevent damages, and I should be sorry and repent in the time of tshuva, and we should try to prevent damages, certainly in our home and certainly in the public area, right? We don't start doing anything and everything in the public area and so on and so forth. So this mitzvah of not chopping, of destroying a tree helps us and promotes us to avoid destructiveness and promoting well-being of ourselves and of society. But he says, the Sefer Chinuch, it is otherwise with the wicked, the embodiments of destructive spirits who revel in the corruption of the world, unfortunately. I'm adding, corrupting themselves. So man is measured by his own yardstick. In other words, he's always affected by his own attitude. And he who desires good and rejoices in it will always be granted to enjoy it. God measures us the way we measure ourselves. If I act kindly to you, if I smile to you, if I see the good in you, if I say favorable things about you, do you know what's likely to happen? That's the way you're going to treat me. It's a very true matter. The way we treat others, the way we're going to be treated as well. Okay? So Here, the tree maybe in this explanation of Sefer Chinuch is only like a prototype. Okay, the prohibition of destroying fruit trees is a general prohibition forbidding willfully to destroy anything of benefit to mankind. And maybe we'll end today's shiur. We're going to the Rambam, the Mishnah Torah that you asked about. You would like to study Mishnah Torah. Does anyone know or remember how many Sfarim, how many books is the Mishnah Torah divided into? 14. Very good. And what is the nickname?
Yad Chasaka.
Yad. Usually we give it the Hey, I think. Yad HaChazaka. Yad, numerically, Yud and Dalet is 14. That's right. The strong hand. Yad HaChazaka, the strength of Torah. Okay, so there are 14 books. Now let's test you, Mr. Michael Aryeh. The last book is called
Shoftim.
Gotta get up early to beat Michael Aryeh. Okay, let's see how early I got up this morning. And the last group of laws is called the laws of...
Malachim.
Wow. You deserve... Come to my office, I have something sweet to give you. After the shiur. Kol hakavod, Michael Aryeh. Go to sleep by 1 o'clock, please. Stop staying up so late and learning all the time. Go to close the books. The Rambam in the Mishnah Torah, in the book of Shoftim, in the Laws of Kings, chapter 6. Chapter 6. I have it right here. He says the following, and he's basically summarizing laws from the Gemara. He says the following: we do not cut down fruit-bearing trees outside the besieged city for purpose of war, nor divert from them the water conduit as to make them wither, because it says, you shall not destroy the trees thereof. So it's anyway causing damage to them. Okay? As it stated, you should not destroy the trees thereof. Whoever cuts them down is liable for the penalty of lashes. Malkot. How many altogether can someone lashes get?
40.
39.
Oh.
40 less 1 as the Torah prescribes, I think, in this parsha. Okay? Whoever cuts down, this does not apply merely to the case of a siege, but in all cases. Whoever cuts down a fruit-bearing tree in a destructive manner is liable to lashes. This is the Department of City. Mr. Yov, you received a summons to come to court. Ask me why?
Why?
Your fruit tree, your apple tree that you have at the edge of your field, its roots have gone under the wall that you have produced, and it's right now causing damage to the road that everyone is using. Can we force him to? Can we cut down the roots and cut down the tree and for? Why? Yes or no? Why?
It's beyond the boundary.
It's a public menace. You're causing damage to the public. So there are times, halachically, we're going to ask you to cut down the trees. You're causing harm to other people. Okay? I'll give you a clear example. Where we used to live in Beit El, we had this gigantic fig tree in the middle of the yard, and it grows so much, good part of the tree is over the sidewalk where everyone is walking. And every day in the summer season, which is the season now, the fruits would fall, and people are walking on them, and they're squashing them, and it's, what I had to do almost every day or every week? I went down with the shpachtel, and I would scrape all the te'inim, all the figs that are sticking to the sidewalk. Why? Because it's making people walk around, walk on it. It grosses them out or something like that. You have a tree, and it's a public harm or public problem. You have to take care of your public needs. I didn't cut down the tree, but I could have cut down some branches to make it easier. Once I was told by the bus company the tree was getting into the road, not only after the sidewalk, and the buses were colliding. With some branches of my fig tree. Gigantic fruit. I'll tell you when you go visit Beit El, I'll tell you where it is. You see, we planted it about 25 years. We planted it about 30 years ago. Yeah. Let me finish this Rambam. But it may be cut down, like we just said, if it damages other trees or causes harm to neighboring fields or because it fetches a high price. I don't exactly understand what it means, fetches a high price. I don't know the context of what the Rambam is quoting from the Gemara. Anyone know this, what it is? The Torah only forbade willful destruction. This is the case not only with trees, but whoever breaks utensils, tears garments, demolishes a building, meaning for no willful reason, stops up a well, and willfully destroys food, violates the prohibition of you shall not destroy. So the Rambam learns, apparently from the Gemara, these are excerpts from the Gemara that he puts together, that this episode here and the prohibition, quote, lo tashchit, do not destroy, as a central prohibition for not just cutting off, destroying trees, but causing loss, causing damage, where there's no need for it. However, there are some that conclude from this Rambam that it's not deoraita. It's not a Torah prohibition to destroy. And some argue, why not? Because if it would be, then the Rambam should have written here, and if you destroy food or you destroy things and you tear garments, then you should get malkot, you should get lashes. But he didn't write that you get lashes for this. So maybe according to the Rambam, this famous concept, Bal Tashchit, don't destroy things, could be a rabbinical prohibition and not a Torah prohibition. The Torah prohibition is referring to the trees, the fruit trees. But others, it could be, from here, Chachamim learned and they made this injunction, this negative prohibition, rabbinical prohibition matters. Questions, gentlemen? Then we'll take it until here. Have a great Shabbat. Shalom to all of you. It was wonderful learning with you together. And it was learning. I wasn't teaching. It was learning together. You made it very